The guard could tell something was wrong. All the slave cages on the second floor of the shop were unlocked. But how? He couldn't tell the owner. After all, it had been his own responsibility to lock them. Had he forgotten? A true mystery. Just lucky he came by before all the slaves went walkabouts. His eyes passed from one end of the rooftop showroom to the other. Nothing. Then he focused on fixing the locks, his eyes just barely grazing over the Sheik sitting on the floor 2 feet in front of him. This was bloody Charlie Els, and as long as he remained downwind of the authorities, he was nigh on invisible. There was something about him that simply didn't register in one's mind. The secret was his ability to slow his brain down to a crawl, preventing any nerves from firing, giving him absolute stillness. Wrapped in a crumpled, oversized coat, he simply looked like a pile of laundry to the untrained eye. Once the guard was satisfied that his incompetence was suitably hidden, he went back downstairs. Then the pile of laundry rustled to life.
Gonna get you out. Slavery is bad. It makes my master really sad.
The Sheik hummed as he skillfully tumbled the locks on both the cage door and the shackles of its occupant. Some of the captives thanked him and waited for their moment to spring out and run. Others were happy to take their chances with the guards right now. Handy, for it provided Els the perfect chance to escape, and even the slave got a good deal. No one was going to buy a product with a crossbow bolt sticking out of it. So, what was all this? As mentioned, this city, Trader's Edge, was a hub of the United Cities slaver racket. Els was carrying out the wishes of his wanted master Nuke by punishing the locals for their complicity. The stealthy Sheik cleared the shelves of the Traders Guild headquarters across town. Then he snuck into a restricted warehouse and pilfered thousands of cats worth of electronics, building materials and weapons. But then a guard rounded a corner and saw him. "What the fuck are you doing here?"
I'm just the laundry.
"Is that... You dirty bastard, get out! What were you doing? Ah, filthy Sheik!" Els quickly trotted off, the huge bulge in his shorts that had unnerved the guard wobbling this way and that. He'd shoved a stolen prosthetic arm down there, you see. To hide it, probably. After that close call, he stuck to sticking his pickings into his ninja grab bag on loan from Nuke. The others slept the days away in the cool thieves' tower, while Els ravenously robbed the bars, the houses, the shops, the barracks, the police station. Demand for laundry services was through the roof, as the whole town discussed the huge piles of dirty rags they'd seen in all corners, and they swore they'd been cooking a steak on the grill just now. After a few days, Nuke was lying on the roof of the tower, with shiny golden cats over each eye and plenty more scattered around his bed. It's good to own the means of corruption. Wadston dared to interrupt his bathing in the wages of sin.
"My prince, I heard a rumour that a caravan is heading back to the capital. I dare say the guards won't be on the lookout for us anymore, so why don't we go?"
In response to this, Nuke ran his hands over the mounds of coins around him, creating small metal avalanches that tinkled this way and that.
"My prince..."
Hear that revenge? What's the rush?
"Well, as I...
Oh, you had to go right there, didn't you?
I'm sorry, my prince."
Look, I know we need to go, but I worked real hard at the stone-perving place. I guess I just figured that if I had a fuck ton of money, it would all be worth it.
"I fear our hosts may feel the same. The bounty on our heads must be hard to resist."
Bounty? What are we talking here?
Azumi said that you're going for over 10,000 in the market square."
Oh, that's nice. 10,000. Imagine if you could get 10,000 cats for stealing just a single item.
"Is anything so valuable, my prince?"
I am. And I've got a bloody good idea. Charlie! Where's Charlie? I need a lift. Nuke's idea was indeed beyond brilliant. He had his filthy thrall carry him over to the police station.
"I got a bounty,"
Els announced. The police chief looked down at Nuke, who had just been slapped down on the table, all over the cards in play. "He got me. What can I say? Pay the man. Or the thing. Pay that," Nuke said. The police chief huffed as he counted out 10 huge strings of cats for Els. Nuke let himself into a cage upstairs. Alright guys, don't mind me. Life sentence. Yeah, I know. No sense guarding me too much right now. You'll get bored of it. So let's pace ourselves here, Nuke said. The guards nodded at this thoughtful advice. When Els and Azumi came to visit the prisoner that night, he had been given his own floor of the prison all to himself, with no guards. Oi, what's going on down there? Nuke asked. I don't know. They've got visitors in. They're drawing little pictures of rocks or something, Azumi said. Oh, yes, okay, Nuke sighed. What? I know, right? What an idiot. You read my mind. I see you're in prison, Your Majesty. Oh yeah, this whole thing. It's not to keep me in here, it's to keep the world away from me, you know. Prince Tashino, would you please shut up? Bloody police are nicer than you. What exactly do you want, history girl? We're here to fucking break you out. I'm not ready to go, actually. Yes, you are. Disgusting, stinky man thing, come break him out, Izumi ordered Els. Els began picking up the entire cage and walking out, but after some hushed panicking, Nuke was finally convinced to just fiddle the lock like he'd learned in shinobi school, and Els smuggled him outside. They got back to Wadston, guarding the fortune now gathered on the tower roof, and all in all, the operation had been a huge success. However, even as perfect a thing as this had one fatal flaw: Nuke Tashino. The next day, he had Els take him down to the station again.
Got another one. 10 money sticks, please,
Els said. The police chief looked up at the cheque.
Yeah, normally they put a moustache on them the second time round or something. New in town?
Yes, pleased to meet you, sir. My name's Bloody Els.
Bloody Els. Right, off you go then.
Thanks, bye.
Hang on a minute, Nuke interrupted, before the police chief stuffed a sock in his mouth. Thus, by pushing his luck too far, Nuke was imprisoned for real, and Azumi had to pay a full 20,000 cats to have the charges dropped. The police chief gave her a complimentary fake moustache though, and wished them better luck next time with a warm wave goodbye. Nice guy. History girl, Nuke began once they were outside. You must be recording my personal history, right? Why would I do that? Because I'm famous. I'm a statesman. That moustache is meant to go above your lip, by the way. Like you would know about that. Look, I want you to erase certain things from the record. Or I could preemptively erase everything by not writing anything? Huh. That's even better, right? I certainly think so. Nice. Good. You're no. A what? Say it, Prince. Well, I thought for a second that you were a good history girl. Ah, good enough to know you're wrong there. Which would make me right, right? Well, bugger. Can't outwit me. Now, watch me steal all those t-shirts over there. For revenge and stuff. Nuke and company stayed in Trader's Edge for a couple more days, redistributing the wealth they had lost back into their pockets. Let's check in with Isaiah, shall we? Well, he was still slumped on the second floor balcony of the Heft Police Headquarters, with no entertainment but the voices coming from the assembly hall below him.
So I present to you now a most important lesson,
one was saying.
I want you all to remember this. The 3 B's of policing: bounties, bribes, bail. Some scholars will come in here telling you there are actually 5 B's, but those other 2 are just bribe again. And I always say that if you have to ask for a bribe more than once, you're better off taking a bounty instead. So don't worry about that. Remember, in this business, the only 3 B's are the 3 B's.
Very educational. At least the worst was over. A couple of days later, Nuke, Wadston, Azumi and Els settled their tab at the Thieves' Tower, paying it with t-shirts like respectable guests, and set off for Heft, having cost Trader's Edge tens of thousands in missing property and freed a couple of slaves along the way. Pretty nice, but after that whole ordeal, Revenge was going to be getting a lot more episodes, with pre-production on episode 6, Eternal Fun Times of the Topless Kind, well underway, although what Els had meant when he suggested that title remained unclear. They arrived that evening after a tiring desert march, but there was still work to do. And by that, I of course mean there was still work for Wadston to do. The doctor went back to the prison cage where he had left Isaiah, but it was empty. Mysterious. Waddesdon feared the poor Shek had been taken as a slave himself, but then he heard a strange muttering from outside.
Bounties, bribes, bail.
Isaiah, what are you doing here?
Mr. Waddesdon! Oh, Ochran's grace! I'd almost given up hope.
Isaiah, we would never forget you. We'll tell you all about it. Now put this jacket on and imagine you're a roll of dirty bed sheets.
I'm not really in the mood for anything like that, Mr. Waddesdon.
It's an escape plan. Trust me, we've been practicing.
The ever-surprising strength of old man Waddesdon bore Isaiah down the ramp and out the front door.
Ah, my lost laundry! Thanks, old man who I don't know,
Nuke said loudly outside. Seemed legit. To complete the plan, the crew took their Sheckley sheets outside the town in order to have all 5 of them walk into town and be noted as people who couldn't possibly have been in prison up until just now. They didn't even need to bother, really. It was late in the day, and as we already know, the guards' eyes are just drawn over their closed eyelids. Thus, after all the madness, the gang packed themselves into Waddesdon's cramped little shed in the corner of town.
Well, you've had a far more dramatic time of it than I,
Isaiah said after hearing a summary of the story. Sorry you missed it, man, but we're gonna get you some proper revenge now, Nuke said.
Oh, Prince Tashino, you really needn't. You've already been through so much for me.
Yeah, and check this out. Nuke opened his bag. 10,000 cats. Still just talking about the money, unfortunately, but that was still pretty good.
Ah, the phantom pennies.
Exactly, and starting tomorrow you're going to earn a few for yourself, adventuring instructor.
Wait, does that mean there's going to be another adventure?
Izumi asked, slumping down on a bedroll. Yes? What do you think the Tashino Credit Management Guild does?
Robs corpses?
And
Gets beaten up?
And
Goes on adventures?
goes on adventures, exactly. Only this time we're gonna be ready. We're gonna go pro.
Well, that's the right spirit for it at least,
Isaiah noted.
But please, don't do it for me this time.
Guess we can get revenge on something else, like...
Oh, History Girl. What did I do? No, we'll get revenge for, the past.
Ah yes, bloody past. We'll steal some more of your history stuff. Gets us rich, right?
Sure, that's why I'm trying to sleep on a straw mat in a dusty shed that stinks of the lesser Shek.
Isaiah don't smell,
Els noted, looking up from a sack of old beans that had his full attention over in the corner.
There are plenty of historical sites out there, Isaiah said. Untouched for the most part.
If you guys are serious, then sure, let's do it,
Izumi said.
Perhaps there will be less interference from those crooked slavers,
Waddesdon reasoned.
Oh yes, we won't get any trouble from them,
Isaiah reassured him.
However, there are reasons people don't visit the old ruins.
Reasons that won't be able to stop us, Nuke proclaimed.
Ah yes, you are the enemy of reason, after all,
Izumi noted. Nuke resolved to prove himself with an actual adventure then. But now that he was a little more worldly, he knew that he needed to focus less on looking like a ninja, which he had of course achieved flawlessly, and more on being one. He needed to learn which end of a sword was the pointy one, and perhaps even more advanced martial arts secrets. That, in a roundabout way, was why he burst into the home of a local townswoman the next day.
You shinobi are less subtle than ever,
the woman noted. Nuke pointed at her. You'll never get a buyer like that.
What? Get out of my house!
Don't you mean my house? Nuke had 5 strings of cats, the coins again, dangling from his fingers. In a weird, poorly rehearsed fashion, he swung them up in front of him, and with his other hand he sliced the strings with his blade. The shrieking woman was subject to a bombardment of scattering bronze and silver. Once the racket of this economic explosion settled, Nuke announced that this was his home now. Once the woman realised just how much cash he had splurged all over the shop, she decided not to argue and head off with coins in hand. It was worth a prince's ransom, as we well know. This was how the Toshino Credit Management and Unannounced Product Recall Guild, and the Watchton Non-Consensual Private Healthcare Guild, and the Semi-Professional Association of Archaeological Grudge Settlers all got a brand new headquarters. The hillside townhouse was in a quiet, well-to-do area of the city, the sort of place where no one would suspect that a band of would-be criminal academics were scheming away. Okay, perhaps you would expect that, especially if you saw the new rooftop training space Watchton had set up. Mats had been laid out and sticks gathered so that the crew could get to grips with fighting. Slavers usually couldn't be bothered with stock that fought back. With desire to show everyone the basics, they'd soon be much more road-ready than before. Downstairs, they set up an office for Azumi to collect her notes and work on her supposed body of research. Very cushy, actually, and it meant that any guards who poked their head around the door would see a somewhat respectable home to suit the somewhat respectable neighbourhood. The fact that most of the books in this office had lewd cover art and property of slaver Gav and the like scrawled inside them would go completely undiscovered. In the desert, a book's a book, but a rock is not always a rock. Finally, while all this work was going on, Watchton could carry out his noble pursuits. He pocketed hundreds, if not thousands, each time skimmers attacked the city, which is to say, he could scarcely get 5 minutes off. Well then, isn't this a productive scene? After many tribulations, it seems Nuke's determination to be as unnoble as possible was actually dragging his crew up from the gutter he had admittedly dragged them into just days prior, but history wouldn't remember that. Or anything, if Azumi kept her promise. But the truth was that she did start to keep a few notes on what was going on, out of mere curiosity. She'd have to flex her writing muscles well soon, for Nuke's next quest would have her seeing things she'd never seen in her entire life, and with very good reason.